Why don't rich people have fat kids? I'm in my second year working seasonally at a private beach in a wealthy area. And I haven't seen a single fat or even slightly chubby kid the whole time. But if you go to the public pool or beach, you see a lot of overweight kids. What's going on? Nanny here. Rich people do have fat kids. You just don't see it. Just an observation: kids from wealthy families are enrolled in programs like swimming classes, ballet, martial arts, ice skating, etc. We've all seen them. They play instruments as well. Most of them are physical preoccupations that keep the kids mentally and physically active. You're at a private beach with a specific clientele that possibly is focused on appearances. You're making the assumption that there are no overweight wealthy kids. It could very well be that those who are overweight are not showing up to a private beach. Because junk food and overly processed foods are dirt cheap and require little time to prepare. If you want to actually eat healthy, you need money for ingredients that aren't overly processed and filled with salts, sugars as preservatives, which is more expensive than, say, a frozen pizza. Add into that the fact that, once you have healthy ingredients, you still need time to turn them into a meal. And your working class person working 14 hours a day across 2 jobs will prefer the cheap, easy food every time. They probably do, but you're not seeing them. Also, like you stated in your own answer to your question, they have more resources and access to ensure their kids don't end up chubby. I knew rich people with fat kids, but they kept going away to weight loss spas. Because rich people can afford healthy food. They can also afford personal trainers and gyms. There is also a certain mindset that people with a lot of money tend to have, that they are very strict with their children, and make sure that they don't overeat or eat too much junk food, and that they get exercise away from their screens. And the really well-off people can afford a chef and/or nutritionist to make sure that the food they feed the kids is both nutritious and delicious. I work with kids from all socioeconomic backgrounds. Wealthier families have greater access to healthcare, education, and personal time. This allows them to be aware of appropriate nutrition, act on that information accordingly, and spend time with their children doing physical activity or preparing healthy meals. That being said, there are still plenty of wealthy people with overweight and obese children. It's just less common. Making healthy food taste good takes time or money. I can eat 2 cans of mixed vegetables and a protein shake for breakfast for 7 days. But do you think a kid will? They leave their fat kids at home. They absolutely do. I think you underestimate how many stealthily wealthy people there are. Most of America is fat now. That said, obesity is so common with low income for a simple reason: bad food is cheaper. That's it. It's very cost-effective to manufacture processed, high-calorie foods. It requires very little money to technically physically fuel your body with calories. It's expensive to use good fuel money and prep time. And once you get into that hormone vicious cycle, it's hard to get out of. Image is an important part of wealth. Fat kids stay home. Wealthy parents are stricter about how their children appear in public. Wealthy areas also have fewer fast food restaurants. Because it's easier to eat healthily and spend time exercising when you're well off. Rich people are much more likely to be educated and of the type that puts a high value on self-care. The opposite is true for poor people. Good decision-making is likely what made them rich in the first place. Habits of all kinds are passed to children, good and bad. How many times have you seen a rich person riding an electric scooter in the grocery store picking up cases of soda and sugary foods? How many times have you seen a clearly poor person doing this? They do. Lower-income people are more likely to eat processed foods. I've seen plenty because they're rarely told no. Rich people have fewer other problems in their life, so can dedicate more resources to their children. Rich people have access to better quality food and healthcare, not to mention they can hire the best physical trainers and access top-of-the-line gyms, training centers. Commonly referred to as food deserts, these regions of the country often feature large proportions of households with low incomes, inadequate access to transportation, and a limited number of food retailers providing fresh produce and healthy groceries for affordable prices. Wealth able to afford good nutrition. Money happiness. You don't need to drown your depression with food. Food is cheap escapism. Money gives you access to education and access to what the education says to do. Good food, diets, doctors, personal trainers, gyms, big yards and pools, team sports, medicines, personal chefs. It all leads to a better life. Impulse control correlates with IQ. IQ correlates with wealth. I prepare for a shitload of down votes, but that's one of the theories. Been documented for decades. Lower the income, the more sugar they consume. Soft drinks and snacks. Especially soft drinks. Healthy food is expensive. Junk food is cheap. Compare an organic chicken meal versus burger and fries from McDonald's. It always seems to be unhealthy food that is on offer. Opportunities to exercise. Rich kids go to private schools and spend a lot of time swimming and playing sports. Poor kids living in a block of council flats in a council scheme won't have that same opportunity and will play video games a lot. Just 2 suggestions, I'm sure there are more factors. Notice their teeth while you're at it. Wealth able to afford orthodontia. Because processed food is cheaper than vegetables. Healthy food. Parentes can also pay to subscribe the children into sport classes while poor parents only have money for the kids' school classes. Rich kids are enrolled in sports year-round to keep them off their parents' backs. This costs, plus the equipment too. So they tend to have a lower BMI. It is because rich men marry pretty women and have beautiful children. Someone told me once long time ago, tap water is basically free, but the next time you see a fat poor kid drinking a sugar drink, ask yourself if it's really because healthier food is more expensive. I think the biggest issue is that when you are poor you don't have the means to put your kids into activities like sports. Sports provides necessary physical activity, promotes social bonding and of course provides some discipline. If you cannot afford activities or have that built-in social network, the default is sitting in front of the TV for entertainment. Obesity is poverty problem. Poorer families can't afford healthy food and often resort to cheap fast foods. Even if they are able to afford club contributions, their parents actually have to bring their kids to sport practice and stuff as well. Rich people being fat is a stereotype of the 1800s, when only rich people were able to not only afford more food, but meat on a daily basis as well. Healthy food isn't cheap. Cheap food isn't healthy. People who grow up in a food-scarce environment tend to have a much less healthy relationship with food in general. I must eat everything I can now, because I don't know if I'll be able to eat again. I'm fat, I'm in my 40s, and I grew up only sorta poor, but I still can't waste food or leave anything unfinished on my plate. It was sacrilege. Wolfgang Van Halen is another example of this being wrong. In addition to what others have said, rich people also care a lot about appearances. Not that we don't all care about our personal appearance, but there is a different level of scrutiny and toxicity that I've seen upper-class mothers put on their kids. How they appear to others on the outside is prioritized much more strongly than I've seen in any other class. You're talking about a private beach. These are the ultra-wealthy with direct access to physical entertainment beach. There are plenty of wealthy people in Middle America with obese kids living in the basement and never seeing the light of day. Also, those beach families probably have a couple weird siblings that don't spend their time socializing. Rich people put a lot of stock in their appearance. Rich people know that mental health and physical health are correlated. It takes both to become rich. They pass this on to their kids.